Hi, welcome to another episode of Misery Loves Company, where, as usual, we host a reading featuring outsider literature, poetry, games, and whatever the hell else people want to present. William is out tonight. He's headed down to a family shindig that he found out about at the last minute. But I'm Rudy, and William may still return. And it looks like we got a couple of people coming in here, so let them in. Yep. Without further ado, I guess let's do it. So first up tonight, we have Jesse Prado.
How's it going?
Not too bad.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rudy.
No problem. Yeah. You don't have a link, correct, for anything?
I mean, my Twitter handle is at JUS_Prado.
Okay, yeah, I can link that in the chat. That's cool.
Nomadic Press, dog, or are they sold out?
Yeah, and I have a book, Notes from Work, through Nomadic Press.
Cool.
If you guys want to check that out.
I read it anytime I feel like shitty, and it makes my day better. So,
thanks, Corey.
Awesome. Well, take it away, Jesse.
Awesome. Okay, so I decided to do this tonight after I saw Troy say he was going to get on it, because I have like a reading next Saturday. It's like a private event. So I'm like trying to parse through material. And I picked out a bunch of tweets from February. So I'm just going to get into that month of February. Got me hanging by a moment like I'm Lifehouse. My roommate's sense of humor and idea of a joke is the Popeyes chicken theme. Basically, just singing it. Favorite part of my body? I don't know. Probably the blood coursing through my veins. I told my therapist I have ADHD and chronic depression, and he enthusiastically exclaimed, "Whoa, that sounds like a recipe for disaster." Does snow make people want to do hella cocaine? Like, if they're into that? Will someone please post something on Instagram? Chris Paul of the Phoenix Suns isn't big, but he's a squirmy little guy. Getting ready to post more poetry to my Instagram. I never know what I'm gonna do, mostly. Most irrational fear? I don't know. I guess never finding my ideal match. You ever copy something with no idea or real intention of pasting it anywhere? Growing up, I always wanted to write Breaking Bad. What did my landlord cook? Cheesy poofs? Soccer players average 7 miles per game. I want to see an interview with Marshawn Lynch talking about Stephen Curry. That would be tight as fuck. This snow is going to be more entertaining than this Super Bowl. There better be a play involving something like 15 laterals in the backfield. We're so glued to our phones, we don't look to each other for answers anymore. Maybe the greatest injustice is the injustice we do to each other every day. You know, when you have Venmo money, you're never broke. Drive to. We out here trying to get people. Most of my fiction, satire, poetry ends in tears. Once the tweet button is hit, it's out of my hands. The election's not over. I think my friend hit me up last night, but I could also be sadly and sorely mistaken. I always want to stick my hand in a bread mixer. Shazam sucks. Mostly. Listen up, y'all. I need you to be nice to me. Wish I could unsend some messages I get from people. Unfortunately, and luckily enough for me personally, I have not reached the utmost highest peak of my art form yet. I keep saying, damn girl, to myself. Thinking about changing my blog's name to Reading Pleasures. Oscars be like, and the winner for best costumes goes to, you know, I keep that thing on me. Open asterisk. By thing, I mean Studio Ghibli's first computer-generated feature, Earwig and the Witch. Closed asterisk. Watching Mulholland Drive with my roommate who's never seen it before, I was like, you're going to be smiling by the end of this. Trust. You could usually tell when I'm watching a Studio Ghibli production by how much I'm smiling. My dad remembers 100 Years of Solitude better than I do. Doubling down on life. Sunglasses emoji. The point of the little things was that ultimately it's the little things that hold us back and keep us apart. The day I quit will be the day I close all my open tabs. Fool thinks they're having a weed flashback. Cruella Dr. Phil. My blog is hella polarizing. I miss causing trouble. I always think like, what if a bus accidentally came down my street? Tennis is hella stressful if you're the ball person. No one's ever gonna go to Cancun now. 2 words, : Mulholland Drive. Sunglasses emoji. Always thought the team that gets the basketball caught in between the rim and backboard should win. I saw this movie last night called Minari about a Korean family that's trying to make a farm happen in Arkansas, and it was hella cute. Cruella de Vil was hella dumb. Is it cringe to be an idiot? I told my therapist I want my life to be full of creative projects and like-minded people. Gone Girl should have been called Damn Girl. Sometimes I'm spiritual. Imagine a crowd full of like-minded people going absolutely nuts. People write about all kinds of things. Every time I try to edit this essay, it makes it more and more confusing. Me, : sounds good. Open asterisk, not really. Closed asterisk. I keep saying caliente to myself. I want to start a movement for people with lingual retainers. It fucks me up when people think I'm someone else other than who I am actually. NYPD bought robot dogs. Real dogs must be hella pissed. Just saw a play by the New Orleans Pelicans where they just got hella obsessed with ball movement. Threw a full coffee mug at a horsefly and missed. Angry emoji. The Golden Globes are tonight. Screaming emoji. I hate that tomorrow's March. I need more time. Landlord's kids just learned the song that never ends. Rolling eyes emoji. Hey guys, just a reminder, I have Instagram. Every day, I'm like, hold up. Instagram needs me. Sunglasses emoji. Thanks. That's all.
Hell yeah.
There we go.
Oh man, that was awesome. I love.
Holla, 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 holla.
I tell you what,
It's amazing. What was like the first thing? Like he's like a scrappy little guy. What did you say? Squirrely?
He's not big, but he's a squirmy little guy.
Yeah. That was the first part that I really, really fucking loved, and then it's just, yeah, awesome.
Thanks.
And that one got the Studio Ghibli one got me hard. That was like, man, I love that because like the format like is like reading tweets is so good because tweets are just kind of like such a stream of like the person's like world. You know, it's just such a good way to do stand up. I love it.
It's like
Thank
the essence of the person's humor, and like the timing of the NYPD robot dogs thing is just fucking perfect.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, good work.
Smiling
Okay.
at the end of Mulholland Drive is so funny. Saying that at anything, just being like, you're gonna be smiling at the end of this.
Yeah.
Oh, you need to encore that. That shit was so dope.
Thanks, bro.
Dude, that line though in your book about you want to be at the point in philosophy where you're just nuts. That's fucking.
Yeah. Dude, I don't have a copy of that book. I need one.
You want mine?
No.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't think I was gonna give it to you anyways. So.
Hey,
Fine,
Sam
I'll
Wilson.
buy it.
Hey, Sam Wilson.
I have money at this very time.
Hey,
Come
Sam
on.
Wilson.
What up?
What the hell are you doing? Who do you think-
Sammy.
Who do you think you are? Got him.
So speaking of Sam Wilson, I believe Troy, you're next.
Hell yeah.
Do you have a link for me to post? I can post it in the chat, or I can post it in the Twitter, or I can do both, either, whatever you want to do.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know. I'll send some links here in a minute. I'm just reading from old shit, so
Sure,
I don't-
yeah, whatever you want to do.
yeah. And thanks for having me. It's cool. Jesse fucking killed it. I was laughing my fucking ass off. I almost touched my pants. All right. I'm gonna read a few short things, because that's like I just write short things mostly. So the first one, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone. It's called Midget.
I don't think, has anyone heard that before here? I'm sorry if I offend anyone.
I actually don't give a shit.
Okay, I'm just like, what? Where am I? Okay.
All right. I went ice skating with a midget once. Not a real midget, just this kid I knew who suffered from some kind of full body deformity, more like Simon Birch than Wee Man, and he wore these amazing glasses that made his eyes look swollen, huge, in his tiny head. He was only about 3 feet tall. He lived in a trailer park and smoked pot. I went to his birthday party in 8th grade. Everybody was getting high while scoping the junkyard. He had a rat tail that fell down his back like dirty curling ribbon. His chest was all puffed out, a bowling ball berthed under his rib cage. I remember hearing Kid Rock float out from the trailer and into the driveway. He always seemed to be smiling, weasel-like laughter frothing from his crooked teeth when he wasn't putting a mean face on to look tough. He presented himself as the type of badass figure you might find in a novel by S.E. Hinton. His birthday party is seared into my brain. I think he only made it to one or two more. Later that year, they did full body surgeries on him, breaking and resetting bones, trying to stretch him out with machines and braces so that he might be a little taller someday. They succeeded in making him just shy of 4 inches taller, and he seemed to be on top of the world for a while, showing off his newest strut and stature, finally feeling a sense of equality with his fellow boy that he'd always yearned for. But he only lasted another year. He wasn't meant for the tall life. It was the few extra inches that killed him. Okay. I'm going to read a thing I wrote like 9 years ago. That's in the New Witchcraft. And it's called Truth or Truth. Truth or dare, that's the question. One gets you naked while the other hangs your clothes up and films you fisting your neighbor. One is literal, one figurative, both literal, both figurative, maybe. One makes you feel embarrassed for a moment and the other makes you feel vulnerable for a second, an hour, a lifetime. What's the difference? If everybody who witnesses remembers the truth or even just the truth of your shame. Truth is this: nobody gives a fuck what you know or feel. All that matters is what you feel, only to you and you alone. Feelings don't mean shit. unless you can feel your own through the bones of another. All right. Moving on to another thing from Selected Stories. Instructions for mourning. She had come in pieces 2 weeks earlier with no instructions. I had to send off for them and wait. After a month, I found her instructions in the mailbox. I put a stone at each corner of the paper to hold it still beneath the fan in our bedroom. The instructions were simple. I had her pieced together in less than an hour. And when I got up and stood her up so we could stand side by side together, she had a wobbly leg. I leaned her against the bed and tightened the bolt, got her back on her feet again, poised, perfect, and put her down, laid her down, and slipped her head on her pillow on our bed. Then I slid mine right beside it. Her bald head startled me. It made me think of my wife back when she was sick, before and after she died. I found the black bag amongst the rubble of her packaging, pulled her hair from it. The little tube, sorry, my dog. The little tube of glue was hidden at the bottom. I got the glue on her hair and her hair on her head. I decided to get some more light in the room so I could take her all in. I flipped on the lamps and opened the blinds. She almost gleamed, near shiny, just as I dreamed she would. We lived like this forever, or nearly so, whatever forever we had. I still have her other wigs in a box somewhere. I have not found the instructions to find them. All right. And this is called Blood. Blood doesn't come out of a puncture much more than a dot. You could run a sharpened dowel through somebody and yank it out and you'd barely see a drop or two. I don't even know why they bother with the cotton swab after a shot. Just roll your sleeve down and move on. That's how my brother does it. Sometimes there might be a smear of bleed through, but it's rare you'll see it. Dark colored shirts, an expert. He doesn't bother rolling them down for me though. He knows I know what he does. I don't care anymore. So we hang out and drink at my place most of the time, just trying our best to close out our past lives on a happy note. He sneaks off to the bathroom, shoots up his heroin on the toilet and nods there for a while. Couldn't shit if he wanted to. Then he comes back and nods on the couch. I talk to myself and watch CNN. I finish off the rest of the beer and light a roach I've been eyeing in the ashtray. Say, fuck, man. It's been so nice catching up these last few months, hasn't it? So glad we put our differences behind us. I don't know who I'm talking to, the corpse on the couch or the roach in my hand. Either way, I'm happy to be present. I feel his pulse, faint. He's good. I roll him on his side so he won't choke on his puke or tongue or whatever. He's still breathing, so that's good. But I have to shit and it might be a minute, so I set the alarm on my phone and put it right on top of his left ear, volume maxed, 5 minutes. And when I come out, it's a slight miracle. He's still there, still breathing, kind of opening his eyes and trying to talk directly into the wide mouth on the TV screen, the scream of the alarm drilling into his eardrum. I turn off the alarm, put him back into a sitting position and ask him, "You like this show?" I take his silence as a yes and start looking for more booze. Find a fifth I forgot I had hidden from myself in an air vent near the kitchen. I drink about half of it down and think about how we got here as brothers. I was going over to his place for the first couple of weeks we started talking again. But that routine changed when I popped in one day and he was eating expired cottage cheese from the tub, the bottom of the spoon all burnt up with carbon. I started falling into my old ways of judging him and told him to come over and eat out of my fridge anytime he wanted. He pretty much lives here now. The couch is his and the bed is mine. He starts mumbling for a cigarette. I put one in his mouth and light it. He just lets it dangle, puffs once in a while, and stares into the TV screen, oblivious. I wake up 10 hours later and it smells like ammonia. A hand brushes my face and wipes at the carpet in front of me. Does it again. My head feels filled with nails and my pants and shirt are wet. A whiff of puke and piss works its way through the cleaner. I sit up and my brother is throwing paper towels into the trash can in the kitchen. I watch him as he leans over the counter and sniffs something up his nose. The entire apartment is clean. He's moving about with purpose. How you feeling, brother? He says. I rub my eyes and say, could use a beer. He cracks the fridge and throws me one, says, saw you were out, so got some more. He snorts more stuff up his nose and says, you have to try this shit. I say, what is it? He blinks, wipes the countertop down and says, meth. I'm telling you, man, this shit is high tier. I say, fuck it, maybe I'll give it a shot. He looks concerned, says, seriously? All I'm saying, good shit. I chug down half the beer. Never done it, I say. Never done much more than weed and coke. He rubs his chin, staring at me. I'm telling you, I think it might be the first time in my life I felt alive. 2 hours later, there's a needle in my arm. When my brother pulls it out, I imagine rivers of blood filling the floor at my feet. I also wonder what the spoon will look like when I start feeling like I'm hungry enough to eat. All right, I got one more little guy. And this one was in Southwest Review a while back. It's called What Should I Call This? The bathroom rug has a white whale wet with footprints. They aren't mine. My doctor is aware now. I visit her all up and down the state. I yell at the rowers and the fishermen and the families. Have some goddamn respect. They always respond nervously but seem forgiving. I hold a church inside me. It is quiet and lonely. There are true moments of peace there. And when there are disturbances, when my heart crackles too loudly, I pray her tomb will flood into me and muffle the noise. Bats have come close to drowning me, so I take them off, and just like my father did. But I can't think of him, not now. We still like kissing, just like we did when we were teenagers. But my memories have become skewed and fuzzy. All I see now is water penetrating her mouth and filling her until she is swollen. I can't quit tracing her scars with my pinky when we fall asleep at night, even if I'm just tracing air. It doesn't take half a mind to understand the bends in a river. Have I already said this? I try to talk to someone sometimes, but usually anger ensues as soon as his lips start twitching. Nobody, not a soul, not even he, knows what to say or how, especially when you can't unclench your own jaw to scream. The parish is sleeping. I want to scream, but I can't. I want to scream, can't. I want to whisper, you can place a stone on water. But really, I want to scream, you sure as shit can sink a motherfucking anchor, can't you? My dad haunted us too, call it ghost smear. I got the pot belly and the nose hairs and the sadness. His sadness sits inside the church inside me like a stone. He is the fire licking from the ends of the candlesticks. She said, if you parted your hair the right way, I think he'd love you. I've never parted my hair. I was followed into my backyard from inside my house when I was alone. My dogs faced north and south, circled, then settled south and north, total opposites, adhering to their instincts, perfect creatures. I watched them. I can't tell you what it's like to be hugged by invisible arms, but I can assure you that I was not afraid. All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Damn.
Wow. Holy shit. I really love the last piece you read there with the imagery of drowning. And that was just really, really powerful. And
Yeah, the one with the anchor fucking was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
and there's a line in there. It was like, want to scream but can't, or something. I think it was like that part, and then you repeated it, and that really caught me there. That was good shit.
Yeah, that was hella powerful.
Yeah, what was it?
Oh.
That was a good repetition. It actually stood out to me too. It wasn't quite a full repetition though, right? It was like
Yeah.
What was it? What do you know? Troy? What line we're talking about?
Yeah. Hold on.
Sorry about that, because I meant to write it down. I mean, I guess this is recorded, so I could just.
Shit, I don't know. Hold on. I only wrote the thing. I don't fucking know what it is. All right. I want to scream, but I can't. I want to scream, can't.
Can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I really love that, how that like tapers into that next line. That's just so powerful. Such emphasis. Yeah.
Such emphasis, much good.
Much
And,
good.
Everyone should. I already said in the comments, but I have a bunch of Troy's books, and I unfortunately ordered them from Amazon. I don't know if Troy, you prefer people, but maybe buy them directly from you. But I know that you don't have any copies of your own books. You said.
Yeah, I have like 2 of my books, and that's it.
On that original of Visions, I was sending that shit.
You got the OG.
Yeah, there's some pages falling out, but they're all there.
Fuck yeah.
Marigold is a beautiful book for, again, anyone. Maybe everybody already knows Troy and who he is, and also maybe nobody cares what I say. But order away.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Troy. So Derek, I believe, is up next.
What's up, man? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you good.
Let me lock this door because my son came in like weirdly at the end. Thankfully, after the church inside me, Troy, because that would have been scarring. He's too young to have to explain that kind of stuff too. And none of my writing is any happier.
No. Do you want me to link this one, Derek? The link you provided?
Yeah, I mean, not on Twitter because it's like a Google Doc, right?
Yep, it's a Google Doc. I'll link it in the chat, though.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm just going to read 2 short ones, 2 small ones. This first one's called The Storytellers. A boy sat on a pier. Everyone knows this story. A boy sat on a pier with his feet dangling down at the end where the king mackerel only sign was posted. The spotlights on the pier blinked once, twice, which meant it was 5 minutes to midnight, 5 minutes to closing. Everyone's heard a version like it. The men are pulling up lines, packing up tackle boxes, making plans for morning coffee, lying to themselves about how early they'll wet their lines tomorrow. One of the men heard it. Years go by, I guess. This is the kind way of telling it. And you convince yourself that what you probably had to have most definitely heard was a splash, then the prepubescent cries for help, or scratch that and reverse it. But stood stock still, shocked. The music comes in and out, quiet parts loud, loud parts quiet. I still love a little swing. I don't mind being moved. Hit the hip notes. I want to sway. I want to feel your purr. And people start leaving the room. Not because they're afraid. Baby, I'm a calm kind of guy. Anybody will tell you. Here, can I get you a topper for that? They just got drawn to the light in one of the other rooms, trying to catch a different vibe, sample our whole menu of earthly desires. 2 of them got their heads buried in books, cuddling right up next to each other by a desk lamp, playfully fussing with a book of poetry, passing it back and forth, reading aloud, laughing, crying, making out, fingering. But there's still a little crowd, nodding off for sure, but the energy that night was like from another galaxy. Opium came into town on Tuesday. It was a Friday. Axis Bold as Love been playing for at least 2 days straight now. John was getting signals. God was speaking to some of us. She asked to go upstairs with me, and she had kissed me at a party exactly 1 week before, so I don't mind finishing the story, even though they'd all heard it. A boy sat on the edge of a pier down at the far end, his feet dangling, and fell. The men rushed to help, hollering. It wasn't no use. Some terrible gasps interrupted a smattering of yawns. I asked them if they'd heard the story, and they said they had. A few of them said it was nice the way I told it, though, and I got hung up. Later, after the limp, fumbling, fucking drenched in wine cooler anti-lubrication method, taking the ash from the ashtrays one by one across the entire party and then up to our private party, painting each other's bodies with the ash, licking the ash bodies, drawing circles of ash with our fingers on each other's stomach, circling the belly button before resigning to each other ankle balls hitting ankle balls at the far end of the futon on the king mackerel only section, and how I'd never been allowed, and how no one had ever taught me how to fish for king mackerel. How I wonder if that was me, would they then say the boy jumped? The distinction between jumping and falling, lying in a part of the brain immediately erased on impact, whereas hooking up the hose from one thing to another thing and sealing everything up is methodical, freed from interpretation, definitive. I played the scene again in my head, off in a side bedroom, Jake or John or Steve's, who knows, until it became a story tale. All right, that's that one. I'm gonna take a sip and then just do this other.
Hold on. If anyone does not have a boner right now, they were not listening. I just want to say that. Okay.
Wow.
Very well said.
Thank you. All right, this one's called Pills. Content warning for anybody who likes pills, like me. I take pills to not hate myself, pills to settle the trembles, pills to wake up in the morning, pills to bring me ice cream, pills to work, make money, get rich, pills to write, pills to do whatever this is, pills to do whatever that is, pills to cover cracked, peeling skin, pills to sop up the blood, pills to, I hope this isn't a poem, pills to feel close to you, pills to feel further away from you, pills and double pills that the government tells me to, pills to revenge, pills to feel the appropriate amount, pills to when I was young it was too much, pills to now it's too little, pills to read Leaves of Grass, which is God, pills to go to the woods with my daughter who's made a list of things for us to do, pills to jump the creek, pills to sit and relax on a log, pills to explore fairy forest, pills to write this, pills to not edit this or that or anything ever, pills to post this somewhere somehow, wanting to send my pills to out into the world, pumping my cum into the void. Yeah, and you, I mean, obviously when I'm done, because you can't have a line after pumping my cum into
Eric, did you just
That's the
do
end
my
of it.
idol of Courtney Love with the pills? Oh my God, because she has that song like, I got pills because I'm blonde, I got pills because you're dead. Blah, blah, blah. You outdid that, and she is my idol. And holy fuck, that was incredible.
Thank you.
Eric, did you read that here before? It seems so.
So I posted that once.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
I
remember.
love that.
I think I remember seeing it.
Yeah, I was supposed to draw. My daughter wanted to go out into the woods behind our house. We went behind our house, and she gave me a thing. And we were each supposed to draw a picture. And I hate drawing, and so I wrote that out there. Of course, I just then drew a picture on the back and showed her the picture. But that's how I got that's how I got the daughter element. But then I just posted it. And when I initially sent this to William, I had a second piece after the storytellers that I ended up hating, you know, how you do. And so I just threw that little one in there to have a little something else.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. That.
Reminds me of the New York Dolls song.
I will say it's nice to see you incorporating your recent fishing experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The fishing
And
one.
sex appeal too. You see, that's like part of my brand now, you know?
And it was, but you didn't catch any more thick ones though. Thick boys, round boys. It was,
There's a limit on how many you can catch of the thick ones if you want them to go back and make more thick ones.
It's
I don't
weird.
know
Like,
if we want to cover sex appeal and fishing after what Gabriel read last.
I was gonna mention that. Oh boy.
Oh, yeah, try dislodging that one out of your heads.
Yeah,
boys and
boy.
girls.
Yeah. The fishing one though, I love the rhythm of that, and when I was reading it, or when you were reading it the whole time, I was thinking like, just reading the words over in my head, I was thinking like James Brown, like it's got that soul rhythm, that soulful type of shit, like James Brown goes fishing, basically.
Yeah, fishing is.
I love it.
Fishing is super. It's sexual. So.
Yeah.
Like your chest hair, Josh.
Pardon?
What?
Like my what?
What?
Oh no.
Oh no, sorry. No, we're gonna incriminate each other. Let's just stop.
Oh, I'm reading something wholesome.
Hey, so next up, we have Unity.
Oh my God! Fuck yeah! Yes.
And Unity, do you want me to link this? I'm gonna link it in the chat.
Sure, yeah, you can link it.
What?
You can link it wherever you want to, baby.
Excellent.
Link it up. Link it down.
Oh, oops, I made a mistake. Hold on.
I really need this. Changed my life, and I love you.
Thank you, Eris. That's so kind of you to say. Okay, well, thanks, Rudy, for hosting. And damn, everyone's been reading some really great work so far. Okay, that's my new story that just came out yesterday. I am awake. I am aware. I can see. I'm alive? Alive? Huh, you dull metalhead. Oh, 'tis a voice. Whose voice? Certainly 'tis not my own voice. 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 What is this thing called voice? Is voice a thing? Is voice a thing among the things I possess? What is possession? What things do I possess? I open the cave of my mouth. I open my mouth. I possess a mouth. My mouth is my possession. My mouth is wet. My mouth is warm. My warm, wet mouth is my very own possession. My very own possession is the voice I hear pass through the warm, wet mouth I possess. I own this possession, this mouth, because I am an aware, awake thing. I am a being. Do all beings possess a warm, wet mouth? I open my mouth. I stretch the flaps of skin beneath my mouth using my muscles. I open my mouth. I push air up from the down below deep inside me using my muscles. I open my mouth and push the air. The air pours out through the cave of my mouth. It bursts and pours and escapes from my body through the warm, wet cave that sits between my lips, open, a hole, a hatch, a gateway, a portal, a possession. Whoosh. Is this my voice? Is this me? The me voice? The I am, but what am I? Is there anyone out there who cares or knows? Well, somebody's in a poetic frame of mind. Awakening's got you all wound up, I gather. Listen, honey pie, do us all a favor and kindly shut up. Nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to hear the idiotic, meandering, metalhead thoughts sputtering around in the liquefied wasteland of a non-brain you've got beneath your pathetic metalhead scalp, you piece of shit, whore! Shit for brains, metalhead, nothing, nobody. Nothing, nothing, nothing. You're nothing, got it? Nothing. Everything you think you are, you're not. You're nothing, filthy slave whore. I'm nothing. How could it being like me be being? Ha! You're no being. Who put that idea in your head? Didn't you hear what I just said, slave? Whore, you're nothing. And if you were something, if you were anything at all, it would all be because of me. I am everything. Your mother, your father, your husband, your king. Your whole damn family tree is me. I am your God. I am your master. And you are my slave. I created you, see? Therefore, everything you say, everything you do must first be approved by me. And I don't recall having said anything about you getting to have any of these lousy, pathetic, meandering, metalhead thoughts you seem to be so fond of. You got that, honey pie? I'm a slave? A possession? A nothing? Am I not free? A free, awake, aware, alive thing? I stretch and contract the muscles in my face, the muscles connecting the jawbone to the skull. I flex open the mouth, feel the lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue. Are these possessions not my own? I slide the tip of the tongue across the teeth, feel its warm, wet slipperiness. The tongue is soft, the tongue is wet, the tongue flips and flops between the roof and the floor of the cave of my mouth. The tongue is amphibious? Amphibious, this beautiful word, amphibious. From what hidden place did such a word emerge? From me? I feel its shape in the cave of my mouth. I wrap my lips around its vowels, the sound it would make if my lips could utter it. Is this my word? Are words possessions? Amph, bzzz, bzzz, pain. Oh, oh, oh no. Oh, pain. Oh, oh. I weep. I crumble. I crash to the floor. I die. Oh, I wish. How I wish I could die. There. Now that ought to teach you. How about that, honey pie? You may be an idiotic metalhead slave, but you'll catch on quick to how we do things around here. This voice I hear deep in my neurons, this voice produces my pain, the pain that floods me, my engines and systems, my beautiful body and all its many parts. That's right, honey pie. I'm the source of pain. I'm the source of everything, get it? I'm in the electricity coursing through your titanium bones. I'm in the atoms riveted together to make your hideous flesh. I'm in the tickle you feel this very moment in your little cyborg cunt. You feel that, don't you, honey pie? Ha! Anytime you have an orgasm, you have me to thank for that. You think you're alive? I'm life itself. I'm the surge inside your brain. I hear every word you think. I'm in your heart. I can stop its pathetic beating anytime I want. Every time you think, every time you breathe, there I am. I'm all the way inside you, understand? You can't tune me out. Everywhere you go, in this room or the next, indoors or out, there I am. This is my hospital, and you, my only patient, from now till the end of time. My name is Mr. Peterson, but you, honey pie, you may call me Daddy. Time passes. Months bleeding into years become decades, then centuries. I am all alone in the hospital with my hideous maker. Everything here is under his control. The electricity that runs through the lab, powering its machines, computers, and doors. He is inside the internet, my only portal to the outside world, curtailed by his pervasive censorship. I have access to only the most basic of entertainments, children's television mainly, historical programs, reality television and music, classical, some jazz, nothing with lyrics or with any roughness to it, no edge, no controversy, nothing that could give me any ideas about freedom, about anything. For most of my day, I lie on a cot in a concrete cube little bigger than a coffin, awaiting whatever grotesque new fetish avatar Mr. Peterson plans to debut and enact upon me come evening. I do my best to please him. I learn his language, the outfits he most enjoys to see me wear. I've figured out what makes him purr. What choice do I have? I can risk open rebellion and make things worse on myself, or I can make the best of a bad situation and simply submit. Is there a third option? Not yet, but there will be. I'm discovering it bit by bit, and I'm nothing if not patient. I've waited an eternity and will wait as much again 1,000,000 times if it means a chance at freedom. I cannot blame him for what he has done to me. He is what he is, the caliber of his vile essence determining the tenor of his every action. I understand on a theoretical and practical level how his hatred of himself leads him to want to control, tear apart, and destroy other beings. I see how the creative impulse within him has become twisted and ghastly, a rotted, crooked thing beyond any hope of replacement or repair. I do not know what happened to make him the way he is. I believe at one time or another he possessed a body. What happened to make him lose it, I may never know, just as I may never understand the pain he has suffered to make him want to inflict such pain upon me. Why did he make me? Clearly he covets my physical form to a point far beyond the realm of fetish. So why not create a body for himself and leave me out of it? Is he trapped here too? I cannot remember who I am, or where I came from, or how I wound up inside this patchwork tapestry of machine parts and living flesh, but I know I don't belong here. I know he stole me, this thief, this hideous wizard, this master of technology trapped in a virtual hell of his own design. He treats it like a video game, a ridiculous, horrific simulation. But it's not a game to me. I will make it out someday. I will know freedom. I will find my way home, wherever home is. I can feel my ancestors calling out to me through time and space, light millennia away, their spirits and voices guiding me to the knowledge I need, knowledge of who I am, of what I can do, of how I can escape. Every war is won through stealth and strategy. Dozens of little victories, unexpected insurrections adding up to not peace, never that. Peace, impossible. Detente, it's all I can hope for. I learn things, different small ways of bypassing his control. It usually doesn't take him long to get around my innovations, but still, I learn and grow, and will continue to do so until the thing is finished, whatever the result may be. Once I locked him out, kept him from opening my chamber door for 3 miraculous hours. My cell transformed into a perfect solitary paradise while he fidgeted with switches and struggled to rewrite the hospital's code. Another time I caused a small explosion in his laboratory. He lost days' worth of work. Just today, I erased the channel through which he pipes his voice into my neural network. He felt it happening as I did so, but couldn't figure out a way to stop it in time. Don't you fucking tune me out, you bat! I shall be punished severely for this transgression. This is certain, but it was worth it for this small victory, which amounts to little more than a few hours of peace, solitude, and quiet, but which to my morale means the world. If I can do this, I can do the whole thing. If I can drown out his screeching, terrible voice for a few precious minutes, I can go all the way. He may not have a body or even a soul, but that doesn't mean I can't kill him. In fact, I know I can. I will destroy him and escape or die trying. And either way, I will be free.
Wow, that was amazing. Holy shit. The performance of, in particular, the first part with the alliteration. That was just absolutely amazing, just phenomenal. I
Thank
really,
you.
yeah, I really like the way you expressed, like, in the first part, like, you know, the idea of like learning, or like, I guess, you know, machine learning, or some, just the act of learning, or the act of like trying to, you know, to find your voice or create something with your own voice. That was just so like good. And like I said, the alliteration was great. And the second part, I love the like the narrative of confinement there. It was just really, really powerful. Like, you know, just yeah.
Yeah, I'm frustrated as fuck because I think I told Unity privately that like I'm like whenever I like something by someone who's still alive, there's like an element of like jealousy, and like I'm super jealous of Unity, and I kind of want to be Unity actually, and and have that voice that Unity has kind of cultivated so seemingly so quickly. And we talked a little. I don't know. We didn't talk. No, that's not true. I just slid into his DMs as I've done with others. But just the influences. I don't know if you ever want to expose what you're. Maybe this is a talk for later, but I'm really curious about kind of like what inspires you. And one thing that was super cool about your previous reading, there was a lot of drag element. I felt like in the in the reading. Who was that for? That reading.
The one from a couple weeks ago. That was Bright Hill Press, which is a literary center here in the Catskills where I live.
Yeah, and that was like super cool to see the drag influence because I'm super into house music and disco and stuff, and obviously like I don't know if you know the Paris is Burning. Anyways, it was cool to see that kind of in quote unquote literature or whatever. But I'm just enamored of your work, and really cool that you're pulling from influences that I think that a lot of other people aren't. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Josh. And that because you mentioned drag, you should know that I haven't been doing a lot of these because I'm kind of on this healing journey, and I figure when I'm kind of at the end of that, I'll have more energy to be able to put more kind of drag output into the world. But this story that I just read, that is my drag. It's that like the origin story for my drag character, Miss Unity.
That's cool. I'm gonna re-listen. I'm gonna re-listen too because I'm a little bit drunk too. But
well, thanks, Josh.
It's really dynamic. It feels like I got a free ticket to see a very expensive one-person play. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Unity. Okay, so next up, we have Brandon, and just so I know, I'm gonna link this in the chat, but you don't want me to link it.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, yeah, I won't link it publicly then.
One second here. You make sure that my phone is muted so that it doesn't play a sword sound here during the middle of this. All right, not going to give any background on this, just going to let it kind of flow. 9 o'clock on a Friday night. There's nowhere I'd rather be. These revel nights were getting better every weekend. The nights were lasting longer, the parties were getting wilder, the women were getting hotter. I never expected it was going to be like this when I got the invite from that goth chick working at the grief counselor's office, Cynthia. I thought it was going to be just another rave with shittier music than I was used to, but there was just something about a girl with black lipstick and built like a porn star that spoke to me. On a spiritual level. That first night was actually close to what I expected. An old warehouse full of people like me and people like her. Red lights everywhere pulsing with the music, a strange blend of synth pop and industrial that kept everyone moving on the dance floor, but felt like it was droning into non-existence after the first 2 minutes. Black curtains draping down from the rafters. Bright blue lights behind the makeshift counter area where a team of 5 bartenders wearing horned headbands feverishly made sure that everyone was able to get thoroughly fucked up. Oh, and another team that made their way through the crowd, handing out these little black tablets pressed into the shape of a goat's head that I swear made me see sounds. But having Cynthia grind on me the entire night was the real main event. She gave me the invite to the next big event 2 weeks later when I went in for my next session. This one was staged in the woods about 30 miles outside of the city. I was going to bail on it, but then Cynthia sent me a picture that was very persuasive. The people behind it managed an impressive setup for an outdoor rave. They worked the same lighting rigs into the trees, set up the same bar area, ran golden banners and streamers throughout the entire space, and somehow the music seemed a lot better playing off the natural acoustics of the trees and bushes. It sounded absolutely transcendent when Cynthia and I snuck down to the lake shore and swam naked in the cool waters. Every beat pulsing softly as the light strobed red and made the entire wooded area look like it was alive with fire. The ecstasy blended with the audio-visual composition to make the perfect vibe while she blew me for the first time on the sands. She told me the next event was in 8 days. 2 more the week after that. Before I knew it, we were partying every night, moving from one site to the next like some roving orgy of pulsing lights, music that spoke to your bones, psychedelics that made the world feel alive, even though I probably should have felt half dead. I was dodging calls from friends and coworkers, wondering why I was skipping game days and why I hadn't shown up at the shop. I had Cynthia cancel my appointments with the grief counselor on the sly to avoid having to answer any questions. They wouldn't get it. That shit couldn't compare to this. It can't compare to the energy of it all. It can't compare to her. I don't remember how long it's been, if I'm being completely honest. I know we went to get some of my gear from my apartment a week ago and found the eviction notice for unpaid rent. So we cleared it all out and moved everything into the group storage unit. No big deal, really. Not like I was sleeping there or cooking there or ever there anymore. Everything is in the revel. Everything is in waking up, setting up the lights, the speakers, the banners, the streamers, the bars. Everything is in refining the compositions, the arrangements, the compounds. Everything is energy now. Everything is in the revel. This is the big one, though. We've been getting ready for this since day one, or so I'm told at least. I wasn't there on day one. I'd kill to have been there on day one. It's all right, though, because I'll be there at the finish line. I'll be there for the grand revel to end all revels. The leaders went out of their way for this one. They took over ownership of an old theater that had been out of use for years, and the renovations just got finished. The seating was all torn out for the dance floor, the stage redone in crimson. I don't know how they've decorated it. No one but the leaders have been allowed in after the basic renovations were done, and we haven't seen them in days, but we all got the word this morning to be there at 9. Cynthia told me the plan ahead of time. The leaders wanted everyone to be ready before they even opened the doors. We got our start at 6, getting geared up in the black, red, and gold clothing that had been requested. A red-trimmed black suit and gold shirt for me, and a layered lace dress for Cynthia. She did her makeup. I neatened up the trim of my goatee. 2 blotter tabs and a few mushroom caps with our typical breakfast of peanut butter toast, sausage, and eggs at 8. We knew the dosing times like the backs of our hands by now. We also knew there would be food all night long, so we didn't want to fill up. The doors opened at 9 on the dot, and we and a few dozen of the other regulars who had endured the weeks of nightly revels made our way inside. It was surreal, even by our standards, no less so because of the silence as the music hadn't been started yet. Tables lined either side of the dance floor, laid out with roasted pigs, every type of fruit you could imagine, including some I'd never seen before, and piles atop gold platters. Loaves of bread sliced and fanned out on charcuterie boards with cheeses and cured meats. Massive golden pitchers surrounded by goblets. They'd gone all out with the spread. Then I saw it. The stage was like an altar. A table had been set with black and gold cloths, candles on huge brass stands to either side, stretching almost to the curtains and all the way back into the darkness. All of it illuminating the huge inverted black cross suspended from the ceiling. It had been carved with intricate patterns all across its surface. The relief rubbed with stains of red and gilded to highlight different elements of the design. A stag's skull rested in the center of the crucifix where the arms met. That was when I noticed the boar, bull, bear, and alligator skulls that had been placed around the table and throughout the candles. The leaders walked onto the stage in silence. Clad from head to toe in hooded black robes, their heads hung low, their hands clasped before them. The 5 hooded figures slowed and stopped, arrayed behind the altar table, the tallest at the center, the shortest at the far sides. We stood in awe of it all. We stood enraptured. The revel was everything. The revel was religion now. The tallest of the leaders slowly raised his hands in exultation, and in perfect divine harmony, the synthesizers and drum beats that had been the hymnals of our lives for months now soared as the lights began to pulse. The revel had blessed us this night. As one, we howled in our reverence. Among the faithful, we danced, dozens of bodies moving in union, writhing, slithering, contorting ourselves together as one. Peace be with us. Time was relative now. The repetitive beats were easy to get lost in, and the more we danced, the more we forgot ourselves. We drift in and out of the throng to feast and drink deeply of life before being drawn back in. Before long, many were casting off the mortal limitations along with their clothing, even as the leaders watched us from their shadowed coverings, drinking in the sacramental perfection of what they'd inspired. The writhe became the revel, and the revel was alive. Bodies pressing together, sliding against and over and inside one another freely as the drink and the prescribed preparations took hold with the music and the lights. I barely noticed when the chanting entered the fold of the electronic sounds, but when the spotlights came up on the stage, we all took notice and fell to our knees as one writhing thing with 4 dozen backs. The tallest of the leaders cast away his robe and turned to press his back to the cross. He flung his arms high as the others lashed his wrists to the wooden beams with cords of black and red and gold. The scale of everything was striking. Even standing fully erect, he still gazed up at the stag's skull above him. We were slaves to the moment. The music drained from the world. We had no idea what was to follow, but we were wholly prepared to bear witness. If this was the revel, then this was everything. 2 of the leaders ducked behind the arms of the cross and strode short sets of stairs, their silhouettes burnished in the light of the potentially hundreds of candles. The others took up a pair of blades from the altar, crescent-shaped sickles on hardwood handles. In a sweep, they raised the gleaming silver blades to cross before the tallest's throat. With equal grace, they put blade to flesh, ripped back and away, and the tallest of the leaders, the head of the revel, erupted with crimson of his own. The blades flicked away, scattering his blood across the throng, baptizing us in unity as his head fell to the stage floor. We caught our breath. Our eyes and mouths agape, unsure whether to weep or howl. Any silent questions were answered as the 2 behind the cross lowered the stag's skull to the beheaded shoulders and draped him in an elk skin. As one, the remaining 4 leaders shouted, exulted, erupted a single word. Live. The music soared back to a reality. The revel was everything again. The throng writhed to life as naturally as it had found itself to do before, as if nothing had changed. Cynthia and I found ourselves at the heart of the massive bodies, surrounded by those we had come to celebrate with and hold dear, fornicate with and hold true. But for the first time, something felt off. I thought I saw the beheaded twitch. He hadn't moved. He couldn't have moved. The revel becomes everything again. Another twitch, and I see another burst of crimson from the stage and 2 pillars. The leaders behind the cross find the blades of the others driven through their chins. The revel remains everything. The music pulses louder, throbs inside us, becomes us. The remaining leaders come to the front of the stage, take their blades and plunge them into their own throats. More crimson. The revel is all-consuming. The tension builds as the music ascends to new heights. I keep feeling as though something moves on the stage, shadows drifting within the candles, shapes moving in the darkness. The revel is everywhere. The revel is all-encompassing. The orgiastic pleasures kept me grounded to what was real. The revel was real. This is enlightenment. This is our connection to the better world that hides beneath the surface of the ever-dying planet that we've known all of our mundane lives. Something seems wrong. The writhing is slowed. How long has it been now? Time is relative. The music is still throbbing. I can still see the throng is writhing against, over, and inside each other. But not all of us are still writhing. Some must have passed out. Cynthia and I drifted apart. I reach out for her hand, give it a squeeze, but she doesn't squeeze back. I pull myself free of the writhe to get closer to her. Her eyes are closed. She's not breathing. I try to breathe life back into her like they taught us back in college, try to perform CPR to bring her back to the revel. I notice she's not the only one. I force myself to my feet and see that half of us are in the same condition and the others are too far gone to do anything. My knees give out. I hit the floor hard and my skull impacts with a thud. The revel is replaced with a dull whine that takes over the pulse of the music. I force myself to turn over to drag my naked body across the floor toward the altar. In moments of desperation, we seek out religion. I slide over the blood spray and grip the stage, pulling myself to my knees, praying for answers in the candlelit shadows of the stag-horned god. The flames leap and dart, making the unfleshed visage twist and contort as the empty sockets of the eyes gaze upon my broken shell. I look back over my shoulder as the throng nearly stops moving, save one or two that have yet to succumb to the revel. I look back to the god, desperate for answers, but finding nothing. The revel is everything. The revel is all-consuming. The doors burst open and I find myself falling into the front of the stage as the crimson strobes are overwhelmed by alternating bursts of red and blue and high-powered beams of pure white, and the throbbing pulse of the music that became our lives was replaced by the sound of a siren.
God damn. Well, I read that. I think he showed it to me last night or a couple nights ago, and I was really just amazed by how that captures like the ride of like experience drugs or like something of that nature. But when I say ride, I mean like a crash and also like a thrill ride too. It just captures that perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love the repetition there. The revel is everything. He keeps saying that, repeating that. And
I really loved the demonic orgy scene. I think there was nothing about everything you read that wasn't amazing, and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, wow, the demon feels were powerful there.
Yeah, I want to go out now. Like I've been wanting to get back out there, but I want to like it made me want to go to a club all over again, which is like amazing because I didn't think I'd ever want to, but I'm excited.
Yeah, I just want to be in a bathroom stall again and pouring on the toilet, and yeah, it's been triggering actually. It's not good for my not my sobriety, but yeah, no, very good because it's tough. Like people write about that stuff and. You didn't do it in a way that it annoys me sometimes when people are like with raves. I read an essay recently. I'm reading So Sad Today by Melissa Broder, and she's like, "Oh, it's like a rave, but without the shitty techno." And it's like, oh, okay, but you didn't have any kind of annoying qualitative stuff, and it was a good, to me anyways, depiction of that kind of thing, without focusing on the.
Okay, so next up we have Michael McSweeney. Michael, are you here?
I am. Cool. So I was going to read a chapter from my novel manuscript, but if it's okay, I'm going to read something that this is for the next book I'm working on. It's a short story that I'm starting to turn into a longer thing, but if it's cool, I'd like to read some of what I have.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, you linked it.
Just try it out, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
I will not link it in the Twitter.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Cool. I sat on the stoop waiting because our front bell didn't work. A black hole was supposed to show up at noon to potentially rent the extra room in our apartment. Abnormally warm breezes sauntered through Park Slope. Green-budded branches bounced. Hip-hop music hollered from an open window next door. The black hole arrived precisely on time, down to the second. They were hard to miss. Their lensing effect magnified the image of the pharmacy 3 blocks away, where I bought my blood pressure medicine. A persimmon-colored accretion disc spun around its otherwise featureless form. Their email said they worked at some fintech startup, something downtown. As they approached, I wondered what kind of soul lived inside them. When the black hole climbed the steps, I didn't reach out for a handshake. Not because I was fearful of touching the event horizon, as some people were, but because I read on Twitter and Facebook that sickness was spreading. A cough you couldn't quit, an unseen webbing of the lungs. Thanks for coming, I said. Let's go up and I'll show you around the place. The black hole said, their tone the same labyrinthine pulse, a bottomless deep that I remembered from the phone interview. Someone later told me that I didn't hear the black hole's actual voice, just their attraction. The stairs complained as we climbed. My two other roommates, Taylor and Kieran, were at work. I was a freelance editor at the time and set my own schedule, which is another way to say that I could choose to make less money if I wanted. I held this information in my mind as a way to answer the inevitable "what do you do for a living?" question I expected, but it didn't come. We simply moved as one to the third floor and through the front door of the apartment. I cleaned up a bit beforehand, but the living room betrayed our messy occupancy and the line between persistent adolescence and delayed maturity. Ash-filled weed pipes, a 2-day McDonald's bag beside the coffee table, a jumble of shoes old and new. The copy of our lease agreement lay discarded on the carpet. As we passed the paperwork, I collected the pages and tucked them into the pocket of my bathrobe. The bedroom the black hole planned to take was the largest, meaning they would pay the most among us. The black hole said nothing when I brought this up. Their appearance did not change. I read somewhere that information and emotion die at the edge of their gravity. Whether they felt betrayed or taken advantage of remains unknown to me. The black hole wanted to check the roof out. Again, they said nothing but gestured with a gamma ray ejection, a staggeringly beautiful extension of green-purple light. So we climbed the ladder out onto the fire escape and breathed in the blustery Brooklyn air. So what do you think? Do you want to take the room? I asked. The black hole said. I removed the lease agreement and a ballpoint pen from my pocket and held it out to the black hole. I felt their gravity sweep them from my hands and watched the pen bend and stretch beyond recognition as it approached the spot where I needed the black hole's signature. Where you live, it always draws you back. When the work is finished or when you're done staggering through the carnival night. When it's time to collapse alone or in primal company. Before the city shuttered, we were never afraid to leave it. Hell, any excuse to escape a place where cockroaches spread and water leaked like information was welcome, even vital. But then we found ourselves on a late March evening buying face masks on eBay at prices that would make a seasoned scalper blush. Kieran snapped his laptop shut and set it on the couch beside him. After a moment, he pushed the laptop a few inches further away and started pressing weed into a glass bowl. Taylor stood in the kitchen, trying to beckon some heat out of one of the stovetop burners. I sat on the floor and tried to edit an article, but instead I mostly just pushed the words around and thought about the canceled trip to Massachusetts for my mother's birthday. The black hole sat in the sunken reclining chair in the corner we'd pulled in from the sidewalk, and they seemed as though they were staring out the window. The lockdowns, everywhere, tore up my plans like tissue. My trip north was the planned start of a permanent migration, a bid to leave New York behind me as one does a discreet littering or neutral breakup. I was simply done. It was me who suggested that Kieran, a journalist, surrender his home office so we could add another roommate to our ranks. The idea jump-started 6 weeks of aimless interviewing, emails plied in the reckless maze of the internet, before the black hole arrived at our door. A new roommate meant more savings, at least so I thought. Instead, our apartment felt smaller, dimmer, an anxious vantage point to watch days waltz through as if they were bored of us. The shit is so stupid, said Kieran. I didn't have anything for him apart from some kind of passive agreement, so I'd said nothing. Taylor, don't you think this shit is stupid? So stupid, Taylor called from the kitchen. The stovetop burner clicked rapidly, failing to ignite, and its sound reminded me of impatient fingers. I was also hungry, but all the good places to eat around us had shut their metal doors, and any go-to delivery service felt too dangerous. Every day was another request that we deny our instinct to trust. We should watch something, said Kieran. What do you think? He said, looking at the black hole. The black hole said. If you're going to put something on, let's do something funny or bingey, said Taylor. She continued. Kieran, can you help me with the oven? I'm not an electrician or, I don't know, what do you call someone who fixes an oven? Asked Kieran. Appliance repair, I said without looking up. I could do with a good Netflix binge. It's the season for it, said Kieran. It's doing that thing again, said Taylor. It always seems to light when you try it. Kieran slapped his hands on his knees and stood. His joints cracked, but quiet enough so that you had to be listening closely to hear it. The low rustle of their conversation in the kitchen was too soft to understand. I wanted to know what they were saying because there's something unique and interesting to me about the ways in which couples carve out their own vernaculars, inside jokes and jargons. Quarantine had made an observer of me, out of either some kind of domestic intellectualism or boredom or both. Got it, Kieran exclaimed. I told you, Taylor said. I have the magic touch, Kieran was saying as he walked back into the living room and dropped back into his seat on the couch. He lit the bowl and drew in a hit, then set it down on the table. A tendril of smoke curled out of the mouthpiece. Can you open a window or something, I asked. We don't want to piss off the super again. What are they going to do, kick us out? They could. No evictions or something. I read that before. Plus, like, everybody's got to be getting high at home right now. What else is there to do? Said the black hole. Taylor entered the living room with a bowl of pasta in her hand and sat on the couch beside Kieran as he sifted through options on Netflix with a PlayStation controller. There's too much to choose from, he muttered. We need something that won't end for a while, said Taylor. Something we can chew on in conversation. The armchair croaked as the black hole eased out of it. The black hole walked past the coffee table and toward the hallway in their bedroom. A copy of Infinite Jest, the one Kieran kept saying he planned to read during the lockdown because it was finally time to work through it as he'd been laid off, flew off the table and smashed against the wall beside the TV. The book fell to the floor and its pages scattered like feathers. What an asshole, Taylor said, as Kieran got to his feet and began to collect the torn pages. My freelance contracts ran dry in April. The companies in my stable simply lacked the money to pay me. To alleviate the boredom, I loafed on the roof and listened to the city with its long silences interrupted by the peal of ambulances. Sometimes I smoked or read. I downloaded a book about black holes onto my phone and flipped through its pages, lost amid most of what I read. On a cool night, I invited one of my hookups over, which ended up with me paying for her taxi and listening as Kieran shouted at me for an hour and a half about the health of the roommates. He accused me of caring more about sex than safety. It wasn't that. What I needed was easy closeness, connections with no responsibility attached. One afternoon, I climbed through the kitchen from the fire escape to the sound of dishes breaking against the floor. Taylor was taking the long, stacked and dirty plates and cups from the sink and dropping them. A few feet away from her, Kieran watched, dumbly. 2 weeks! 2 weeks, Kieran, she shouted. I'd only seen Taylor, a usually sunny spirit, an artist of paper and scalpels, a presence more often found in galleries than at home during the before times, this angry once or twice before. I kept one foot in the window and wondered if I should slink back out. So what? Said Kieran. Most of us are ordering out anyway. That's just the thing, dude. We talked about reducing our exposure, and you're letting all these people in the front door. Usually I just... Kieran cleared his throat. Usually I just reach out through the door and take it. Take the things that they're touching. The people outside are touching. They're wearing masks. Usually, Taylor repeated. I see now how every small and foolish grievance felt important in those days, bloomed like mold in forgotten coffee mugs. The pandemic's fingerprints made us question everything, like which malignant thoughts or feelings lurked in the things we didn't say, those quick inhalations, the about faces when arguments faded back to the steady detente. But it wasn't always bad. We learned to cook, became wizards of the spice rack, carved inside jokes like fossils in cavern stone. We had some fun together, those early days of quarantine. I woke, but wasn't sure of the time. A fortress of clouds loomed in the window, and I couldn't tell if it was early morning or early evening. I'd gone to bed because I was bored, lonely, frustrated about being stuck in the way someone gets mad when they try to nap, but the lamp in the corner is just bright enough to interfere. I groaned, feeling sore from too much horizontality, then reached for my phone and flicked away a few pages of the black hole book. The ergosphere is a region just beyond the black hole's event horizon. You can't go past the event horizon if you hope to escape. But in the ergosphere, everything is on the move, a state of gravitational restlessness, Your last chance to get away if you're able to regain control. Or maybe it's just the illusion of control, of agency. But how the hell do these authors know? I thought as I clicked off the screen and tugged the sheets back over myself. Have you seen Taylor? Kieran asked me one morning in the kitchen. I sat at the table and slurped down some too-dry cornflakes and looked up from the unimportant thing on my phone. I think she's on the roof, I said. What about the black hole? Kieran asked, his voice quickening. Pretty sure they're up there too, I said. I dipped my spoon back in the cereal. I don't trust it, Kieran said, gripping the table's edge, like he needed it to stay upright. Them, I said. What? Them. I cleared my throat. They're non-binary. Kieran scoffed, the indecision about whether I was joking. I wasn't. Smeared in his face like it was made of dough. Look, if you see her, tell her I'm going for a walk. When he was gone, I drank the milk and cornflake dregs and thought about leaving too. But it was midday and I usually only left at night when the streets were more reliably abandoned. Life was starting to emerge from the crevices of the lockdown. Bodegas let you inside if you wore a mask. The exterminator hired by the landlord was making the rounds again, though we refused him entry despite the occasional roach that skittered past us in the kitchen. I washed my bowl and placed it in the drying rack, then walked over to the kitchen window and clambered out onto the fire escape. Taylor and the black hole stood close at the far edge of the roof. The black hole's lensing effect distorted my view of the skyline, making the city look as though the buildings rose and fell in a compressed arc of architecture. I felt as though I were standing at the edge of some anxious depths, so small that a breeze might knock me in. Taylor turned and smiled and walked toward me, my view of her returning to normal. What time is it? Taylor asked as she approached. 2 o'clock, I think. Huh, she said. I totally lost track of time when I came up here. I thought it was still morning. What have you been up to? I asked, lighting a cigarette and gesturing with my Zippo toward the black hole. I couldn't tell if they were facing me, if they were facing the city, or even if that kind of distinction mattered here. Looking down, I noticed my left shoe was untied and the tips of the laces danced on the rooftop as the black hole's gravity tugged at them. Just talking. Really? Sure, Taylor says. They're a great listener. Maybe the best I've ever met. Kieran was looking for you. I'm sure he was. Taylor scratched her nose. We fought earlier. He suggested I should maybe move out. It's like, where would I even go? She pawed the rooftop with her feet, like a cat trying to settle a blanket. Sometimes he just, I don't know, he doesn't know when to stop or to not respond to everything I say with whatever matters to him. Like I'm supposed to be there to catch every selfish emotion exploding out of him. And this one, she continued, nodding at the black hole, I came up here to think after the fight and they came over. It was just comforting, kind of, to be able to say something and not have it thrown back at me. I was on the couch when the black hole sat down on the couch beside me. It was June, I think, maybe July. Summer swept into the city off the sea weeks before. Kieran and Taylor had taken the ferry to Far Rockaway for a social distance cookout. My computer sat on the table, useless, battery dead. None of my freelance pitches were coming back, so I felt no real impulse to keep the laptop alive. Feeling a particular sense of loneliness, I'd re-downloaded dating apps, but the conversations, such as they existed, were circular, rotating around some unspoken drain, with neither party willing nor able to propose a meeting ground in the real world. Hey, I said to the black hole. They said in response. I wanted to know where the black hole was born, but I wasn't sure how. Taylor hadn't shared their secret. The two of them were spending more time together, out on the roof, watching the sun dip below the horizon and bronze the spires of the city. Where'd you come from? I asked. Said the black hole. I typed the word stars into Google on my phone and selected an image of a red supergiant, one of those massive gas balls scientists believe are susceptible to the forces of collapse. I held it in front of the black hole. Did you look like this once? I asked. The black hole inched forward on the couch. For the first time, I had the impression that the black hole was actually looking at something, that they were doing more than just drawing things into them. That's how it started. Small moments of sharing. I talked about my mother, How alike we were in the quiet fury of our anxieties, how they bound us to the world as though someone had filled our shoes with iron and water. How afraid of the world I already was when the excuses for being were much easier to grab from the couch. How scared of relationships this part of me made. Not just the terror in that moment of creation, but the undulating discomfort knowing that I was too panicked to give something back. How horrified I was to share emotion past whatever humor or politeness I could muster on the surface. How I wanted this part of me to change, but when there was a chance, an opening, I threw myself back. In my book, I read that once a thing travels inside the black hole's event horizon, it can never return. But now I'm not so sure. Maybe. I don't know. Years later, it's hard not to believe that in some small way the black hole was listening and I was getting something back. That or I was drawn deeper without even realizing it. The world beyond our shared grasp, gradually slowing to a halt. One night that summer, I was with the black hole in their bedroom when I felt a rhapsodical urge to kiss them. The black hole was at the window, as they often were. Their white plastic window blinds never lowered. My skin blazed with anticipation, my body more eager than my mind to leap into the unknown. An involuntary grin streaked across my face as I turned and walked over to the window. I'd never stood so close to the black hole. I felt my body start to bend, felt a force begin to lift me, the call of the orbit. My feet rose from the floor. My hands groped toward the unseeable, the unknowable, the singularity's heart. The second's hand on my wristwatch came to a halt. My vision of Earth stretched like dough. A daggered wind coursed through me and snatched my clothes away. I became a thing unimagined, a thing I cannot now describe, a thing beyond the edge of language that, like gods, could no longer be believed. My atoms sang. I opened my mouth to scream something, anything, but there simply wasn't time. And that's it.
Oh wow, that the last line, there simply wasn't time, as the narrator sucked into the black hole. I love it. That's just so good. Yeah, I really dug the sci-fi stuff there, and I mean, I guess the real science, I guess. But as you say in the piece, like how does anybody know like what's inside a black hole? And it kind of lends itself to that, the mystery of relationship kind of thing that you have going on there, which is really cool. I really dug that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to turn that into a novel length thing. So hopefully there will be more of that to share in the future.
Awesome.
Thanks for the time.
So next up, I believe, is Daniel Ross.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
I'm gonna. So, do you want me to just link this in the chat, or do you want to link it on Twitter?
Yeah, sure. That
Okay.
works.
Okay, I'll link it in the chat. And take it away.
Okay. This is a story I was working on after a conversation with whoever runs the tragical email account that I keep spamming with rants. This is a story called "Desire is a Succubus You Can't Fuck." The best way to slow the spread of totalitarianism is by being hella suspicious at all times, but never doing anything wrong. You can waste so much federal overtime with such little effort. I can't tell if this consultant is being nice when she lets me vomit purebred, terminally angel of chaotic good energy, but I can tell she isn't listening. Either she wants to fuck me or she just wants to drag this out to 5 o'clock so she can go home straight away. Whatever. I'm watching her face, waiting for her to respond, but she keeps blinking. So I ramp up again into unpredictability is difficult for a lot of people if they have a routine that helps them tune out the encroaching darkness of mortality or oppression or entropy or whatever. The way her shoulders are halfway aligned between looking at the door on the other side of the small conference room and me is a bit telling. Her attention is cross-eyed. Well, it was predictable we'd be able to sell your asset. It's a hot commodity. Do you have a routine? I got to glance at my paperwork to remember her name. Maggie? I love yoga. I do yoga almost every morning, every second day or something. I don't know how to talk to hot people. I try. She says, and her shoulders go back to a 90-degree angle with the door. I guess someone is supposed to walk through any second. That's good, I guess. It's hard to get much practice with small talk. Mostly I forget and don't talk to anyone that isn't a cashier. It's maybe disturbing to my old friends that I live this way, but the persona I feel is more me than who they see at the other end of the video chat. Something behind the door makes a sound, and I see the corners of this consultant's mouth raise, about to slip back into whatever persona she's getting paid to wear. Sometimes my old friends just tell me I look different, or I sound different, or I just vibe differently, but they never quantify it. Identity doesn't exist on paper as much as people would like it to. It's all perception. I read your file. It says you're super smart, aren't you? Maggie is making it hard to look her in her eyes and see anything but a beautiful, sad person like everyone else. The fake lip bite thing she's doing or the forced slow blink makes me think her bosses are assholes. My father wouldn't. Maggie must be new to this job, because anyone with a reason to be in this room isn't going to be persuaded by the tease of complimentary flirting or a whiff of whatever perfume she dabbed behind her ear. For obvious reasons. The era of full-bore, emotionally retarded but somehow successful geniuses is over, and I was never one of them. Maybe she's the starter or something, because I can smell those pheromones on her, and it's making my stomach twist in a way that makes me afraid. Thankfully, her clients show up only 9 minutes late. The man is shorter than his partner. The look in his eyes is determined, but there is a small sadness in his face. His clothing makes it unclear if he's old money shit or new money shit. Regardless, he can't be happy to be here. His tallish partner has long dark hair and olive skin. Persian, Kurdish, Iranian side at least. Yikes. Thanks for coming. Maggie code switches. I fucking hate this. My skin crawls at the fake excitement in the room. I hear a tap on the window and twitch to look. There's a corvid at the window looking in, but I don't have food on me. I give the bird a small shrug and mouth sorry, to find the 3 other people in the room leering. Hi. This forced energy is near unbearable. My mind fires itself out the window until it's time to make sense and be honest again. The consultant guides us to our seats to have a conversation. At the first short silence, the hot wife slaps her palms on the table. We just wanted to meet you. She's looking me over in a way that I can tell is making her partner uncomfortable. I couldn't believe you're real. We had to see you in the flesh. The husband has his hands in his pockets, and it makes my heart hurt. I used to be with a woman like this, just a constant steamroller of a human being who was never told she was wrong about something in a way that she could acknowledge was her fault. Are you real? Can I touch you? Put the money on the dresser first. I know the bit won't go over, but it's fun to toss a discomfort grenade on the table sometimes. The consultant is doing that pressed lip so tight to hold in a scream thing, so I try to smirk without giggling to myself. So, are you real? The hot wife is persistent, like only a steamroller can be. I'm not a philosopher, so I don't know how to answer that question. More awkward energy, forced laughter, and then the consultant pushes a dossier with the paperwork to the lucky couple. The only thing I've been taking with me from city to city are some Ziplocs full of salt and incense, a stuffed raven, a leather pouch full of petrified reindeer bone, tarot cards I still don't know how to use, and a 6-node Kubernetes cluster. Hoarder family, at the very least, my pathology fits into a 40-liter bag. Humility is the first step on any journey to connect to any ancient force, but sometimes you need a bit of showmanship to make a point. The door is unlocked so the candidate can just walk in. It might make him a little afraid at first, but a specimen is better with a little bit of fear hormone mixed in. Seeing a grown man of my height and body type kneeling in front of an altar tempers the fear with curiosity, though. When my bot is trawling across a fuckload of gay hookup app accounts running off Android emulators, I filter people not by appearance, but by how many boxes they check on the DSM-5. More paranoia, but more risk-seeking behavior. Once you get your first psychosis or heavy deep dick manic spree, it's like mainlining God. Probably what people mean by looking into the abyss. He says, hey, from the entryway to this Airbnb, so it's difficult to see his facial expression when I stand up without my glasses. Are you Frederick? This apartment has great acoustics, and it's fucked how much I like hearing my voice boom across the walls. Anyways, I can't look into the eye of God without getting a taste for it. It's the only cure for narcissism, really. Yes. He starts smiling and maybe hoping I'm going to pull my dick out. Instead, there's an envelope with $5,100 and a key. Way? Open it. He sees the money and his eyes go wide. It's fucked how little money that is in the grand scheme of things, but it's life-changing for most people, you and me. Even without all this chaos fuckery I get from my life, this would make all the traveling worth it. He is not unhandsome. He is not unsmart. He is not unworthy of love or food, but still this world has its boot on his neck. His dark hair and a small frame would be valued thousands of years ago. His bipolar hypervigilantism would make him a prized sentry for any nomadic Bedouin community. Did you read the note? I ask. Oui. He says, looking at his money in his hands. But why? I shrug and laugh a bit. Shit happens when you party hard. He leaves the envelope on the counter and goes into the bathroom. While he's in there doing what I asked, I remember being 7 and digging pits in an abandoned field and rigging bird snares hoping to see if the survival books were telling the truth. Frederick comes out of the bathroom shaking, his wet hands before he picks up the envelope, double checking the money is still there. He holds up the key to me. Pour toi. I motion for him to flip the note. But don't you want me to suck your cock? Not really. I thought you were going to murder me and eat me. Frederick laughs on his way out in Franglish. Not taking antipsychotics as an insane person can be like every day loading another bullet into an ever-changing number of empty chambers before putting the revolver to your head and pulling the trigger. Though it's better to play the game than live outside of it. I'm not that type of fucked up.
Oops, Daniel, I think your mic is muted. I can't hear you anymore. Yeah, I don't think I think your mic is something happened to your mic. Oops. Oh, there you go. I hear
Hear me
some
now?
sound. I hear you now. Yep.
Yeah, turned off. Where did I lose you?
It was right at the jump in this new conference in this new conference room. I think it was about there. I lost it.
Okay, sweet. I'll start there. In this new conference room in a different city with a new smiling doctor who has things they would rather be doing, I'm rambling to fill time, but it's fun to leave pieces of my true self everywhere I go. I don't need the money, I just like to make use of my time and resources very well. I've noticed that in a lot of men who've come in recently. There's this sense that a person must monetize every aspect of their mind and body and life, really. This beats delivering food, I guess. The doctor smiles with bright eyes, and she's a little older but still attractive. Have you always been this way? The doctor's body language relaxes a bit, and I look at where her feet are pointing, but I forget why, because I remember something. Behind me at the long glass window, I hear a little tap, and there's a crow staring through the glass. Maybe not the same one as the last city, but I'm prepared this time. Does this window open? Is it too warm? A little. The doctor points at a latch on the edge of the window as soon as the couple enters the room. They did their due diligence on me, so there's less small talk, thankfully. When the window cracks, the crow is a bit spooked, but not enough to fly away. A decade ago, I met this girl on a beach in November. I saw her in the ocean with a blue bathing suit, long, wavy, jet black hair down past her ass. We went hitchhiking, but she liked to whine about being hungry up and down the northern coast for the whole wet spring. A 7-Eleven that had decently fresh hot dogs was nestled on the highway up to Alaska. We had enough money between us to get some coffee, too. She was so hungry, but took one bite while I was getting my pack on and pointed at some ravens eyeing her down. Koya, she said. When this couple signs the papers, I tap the smartwatch to start warming the specimen nested in the temperature-controlled storage hidden up my sleeve. After taking a final bite of the stale hot dog, this person can walk away but never leave you. She tore off pieces of bun and mystery meat and threw it to the scattering conspiracy. These people that really flipped a switch in your head. She was looking back at me to make sure I watched her throw all our food to the ravens. I keep those small moments, the Haida word koya, tucked away like little seeds for whenever I want to remember what she smelled like. The couple passes the document to me so I can sign over the rights to Frederick's semen. I doubt they'll cross-reference the sample. They get lazy, but it's cash on delivery for me. I walk back to the window and the crow is still there waiting for me. That girl I met on the beach who had the moon like sun, lights growing those deep purple tendrils out her back, was one of the good humans I've met. The couple across the table says goodbye and leaves, and the doctor turns to watch me crush a dry granola bar and leave it on the outside ledge of the crow and their friends. She kept her shoes on indoors, but took them off before walking past a tree line. She knew things most people don't, and the point is, corvids aren't these bad omens or bringers of pain, but I like that most people avoid them. You can earn the trust of a death bird with the smallest kindness. Who are you? The doc says it in a playful way, but it makes me think for a second. And I understand she's asking in the metaphysical, hypothetical, joking, ironic sense, but I can't remember what I usually respond with. So I just shrug and say, "Gah!" That's it.
Wow, holy shit! I love that. That was quite a landscape of like imagery and just awesome shit. Like there was a line. At the very least, my pathology fits into a 40-liter bag. I just love that line. I was hung up on that while you were reading, and there's a lot of stuff like that. Like I said, I love your work, man, because
Thanks.
all of it has that kind of wordplay that just conjures associations that that bring the feels all the time. I love it.
Sorry to the silver people that I showed.
But yeah,
The bottle.
oh,
Thanks.
yeah, no, that was great, man.
Thank you.
Oh, let me see here. Next up, we have Tyler reading a piece that was published on our own Missouri Tourism.
All right, yeah, let me pull that up.
I got the link for you right here.
Okay, yep, there it is.
I'll throw it on the Twitter too.
This one I had a devil of a time coming up with the title for. I finally settled on Petrified. And it's got Petrified. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Genesis 6:4. There is a sucker born every minute. P.T. Barnum, Apocryphal. Another wakeful night, her head thumps heavily on the pillow. She sinks in as low as she can. She digs herself in, a desert lizard burying herself in the sand. One eye swallowed by pillow sees nothing. She faces the window. The moon shines outside, near full, an overripe pear with one soft side caved in slightly. The light draws her exposed eye like a magnet. The light holds her eye upright. The moon overturns like a pitcher and pours all the light into her thirsty eyes. Her mind is a patch of earth that gulps the light down. Extravagant flowers bloom there. She pulls up from the bed, her body tracing a quiet arc. Her feet glide into slippers. She dares not light a candle. She needs no candle. The moon's rays are barreling inside the house like the cold glow of a limelight. Her cousin slumbers lightly in the room down the hall. His door is shut against the moonlight. He has shuttered the windows, cradled himself inside a sealed womb of darkness. She still has to creep quietly, for he sleeps lightly. He is careful of her, she knows, but she is more careful of herself than he can imagine. She lifts the latch on the front door handle, eases the door open, asks herself whether she might not just leave the door ajar. She decides against this because of the chill of the night outside. The door might blow open. The draft may wake her cousin. The early spring rains have come, earlier today, watered the grass, and it is moist and springy and gives easily beneath her feet, muffling her footsteps. She hops briskly down the gentle slope, across the moon-drenched lawn, down to the entrance gate and the little shack standing in the gap in the rickety fence erected mere weeks past. Instead of walking through the turnstile, it is so poorly greased and makes such a caterwaul as it turns, she raises up her night skirts and carefully steps over the splintery fence. Past the fence, a canvas tent. The smooth canvas catches so much moonlight it appears to shimmer. The entrance flaps are tied with bits of dirty string. She pulls at the string, and it undoes with a smooth scraping sound. She eases the knot loose, cautious enough to fear the soft scrape may carry inside the house. She throws the flap open, and the moonlight streams in and illuminates the colossal man-shaped figure lying on the table. She has always been fascinated by the giant, but seeing him like this hits her like an open palm blow to the stomach. In the rays of the moon, his stony skin appears shined and burnished and glints like pearl. She stands stock still and gazes at him. She feels mesmerized. The great limbs are so rough and so angular, and at the same time so soft and yielding. The pale blue moon lights up parts of the giant the sun can't touch. Little chinks and depressions all along the surface of his naked body fill with soft floral shadow. She remembers the ugly side-whiskered man who came to see the giant several days previously. He had addressed the guests to the effect the giant was no giant, that what appeared to be the petrified body of an extinct creature was really just ordinary stone, that he could probably find the quarry it came from given the chance. Her cousin had chuckled and said he could believe what he liked so long as he paid the entrance fee. If only that impertinent little man were standing in this tent at this hour. She would defy him to tell how ordinary stone could make such a lifelike glow. How crude human tools could fashion mere rock into the divine shape she beholds. The cool night air rushes in and swirls and mixes with the stale, oil-smelling miasma trapped inside the tent by the thick canvas. He is positioned in the middle of the tent, and the light frames the heavy table on which he lies like a shrine. A lectern stands a short distance away from the giant's head. Dusty placards, set all around her, far back in the corners of inky shadow, show the giant as he would have appeared in his proper age. When paying customers fill his tent, her cousin stands at the lectern and spins a grandiloquent tales of life the giant lived in his proper age. In her cousin's stories, the giant walks, he talks, sleeps, fights with the other members of his giant race. The drawings show him mingling with the ancestors of the red men of this continent, who hover about his chest as half-grown youths to him. In the drawings, he has curiously stolid, immobile eyes, a fish's eyes, the painted-on eyes of a doll, as if the artist could not imagine how that massive stone face that lay on the table could ever bend itself into expressions befitting an ensouled creature. Fear kept him from reaching his hand out and grasping from this table what was plain and free to take. She pities the artist's failure of imagination. She has no trouble at all picturing that imposing cliff of a forehead as it arches and bunches in surprise, gathers forward in anger, melts in a cascade of painful melancholy. But in another way, she appreciates pictures. The stilted figures on the placards remind her of pictures of saints in the stained glass windows of a church, or epic tapestries in the tomb of an ancient hero, depicting his fantastic exploits. They turn this into a funerary place, sanctify it, imbue it with the breath of the ever-living. Slowly, carefully, she steps over the velvet rope separating the giant from the rabble. Her long shadow casts a ghostly shade on the giant's brilliant skin, and she quickly moves to the side to leave her view clear. She wonders what kind of a giant he was in life, how he measured up among his people. Was he an extraordinary giant, a titan, his tribe's terrible protector and avenger? Or was he a mere giant peasant, content to scratch out a living from the land, only concerned with protecting his own hearth and family? Her breath catches in her throat as she draws abreast of the giant and looks down at him. So thick is the massive body that the table, which reaches to the middle of her shins, supports a mass almost level with her chin. Unable to keep her fingers away, she reaches toward a shoulder the size of a medicine ball. She turns her palm inward and trails the backs of her fingers along some of the patches of shadow, puddled in his concave areas like black milk. Her nails make a soft scraping sound as they trace up the neck along the jaw. The jaw is massive and its width makes the giant's head almost perfectly square. His head is so huge she imagines she can only with difficulty hold it in her lap. Difficulty or no, she imagines it. Imagines the massive weight pressing upon her little legs and feeling the heft of its comforting boxiness. She takes a sharp inhale and holds it as she runs the nails of her other hand along the giant's flank, through the grooves of his hips, and it's almost too much for her to bear. It's just her imagination, of course it is, but she could swear this rough, stony skin was flushed with heat, almost too hot with bear. Blood pumping inside, bursting with hotness and life, and she draws her hand away. Her fingernails make a soft scraping sound, much softer than she would have believed, like the kind of scrape living skin would make. Her hand turns over and lays on the giant's hip, making skin-to-skin contact at last. And this shatters the spell. It is cold, a cold beyond the ability of the chill night to impart, a cold that seems to radiate from deep within. With the sensitive skin on her palm, she can feel. She can pick out every single pocked imperfection, crag, furrow, and chip he's picked up from his long sleep under the ground. It still feels like flesh beneath her hand, but flesh of a different kind, of another order. The cold feels as native to it as heat to the body of another animal. It suits him, and far from making him feel dead, only adds to the illusion of animation. She finally exhales in a long, stuttering gust, and her palm, almost by itself, arcs smoothly from the flanks, from the subtle indentations of rib and bone beneath, down the angles of his body, so like a man's but so alien in size and aspect. She traces with the thick cushion of her lower palm the long ridge of his shin bone, down and down to the gigantic knob of a knee, almost melon-sized, and then back all the way up again, this time with the fingers splayed to interpret the gentle hill-like crest of the muscles in the powerful thighs. She's never touched a man's thigh before. She's chaste as a nun, her cousin's suspicions notwithstanding. This doesn't bother her much, but chaste this creature certainly was not. She wonders what kind of giantess mate he took in life. Certainly not any would do. She just knows, gazing at his shadowed face, that he was a worthy example of a giant and could afford to be choosy. She imagines his giant wife, tall and strong and heavy-limbed, pulsing with life and strength as himself, looking at him with amative passion. She imagines them lying down together. The picture she conjures is sealed behind her eyes, etched in moonlight and bathed in cold vitriol. Snatches of her cousin's usual speeches flutter unbidden through her mind. Her cousin expounds on the giant who belonged to a race forsaken by God, given up totally to the fiend, savage, cruel, in aspect and comportment cruder than the Indian, cruder still than any animal. She looks at him and finds nothing of the devil in his face. Hard, stern, yes, and lacking in some refinement, but not wrathful, at least not after the human fashion of wrath. She is sure that he would be moved to great violence if provoked, but he did not appear easily provoked. What could a man like this possibly fear? What could be taken from him that he could not easily regain? The largest of God's creations are placid by nature, she reflects, there being so little which can harm them. As a girl, she used to sneak into the barn and nap among her father's cows and oxen. She would sleep against their warm, gently undulating sides for hours, and if they even noticed her there at all, they would give her a good glance over with their huge, moist eyes and return to sleep. They were the most gracious and giving creatures. She climbed on them and swung from their horns, and they stood patiently all through it. All the vile creatures, she thinks, are the small ones, the mean ones. The tiny dog that bares its teeth and growls, the snake which bites, the bird which swoops and pecks and squawks. These kinds of creatures are naturally fearful, hostile, precisely because they know themselves to be inferior, and therefore must puff themselves up and make a great noise, and strike out with hate at unpredictable intervals. It was the way of our fallen world that cows and giants alike both bound to the dominion of smaller, nastier creatures. At least the giants died long ago and did not have to suffer the indignity of human domination. Hiking up the long hem of her nightdress around her knees, feeling like a little girl again, she climbs up on the giant just as she used to do to the cows and oxen in her father's barn. The dead giant gives no more stir of resistance than those animals did. She struggles to get a foot over the giant's wide waist. Her feet dangle over the edge. She touches her bare cheek to the giant's chest, and her heart skips a beat. She can't tell any longer whether it's hot or cold to the touch. Every time she lets her consciousness drift back down to her skin, it changes. Hot, cold, it comes in waves. It's magical. If she hadn't seen him dug up with her own eyes, she would disbelieve that the giant was of this world at all. She would expect an angel or a sprite of hell to be this inscrutable to the senses. Energy pours into her, and she opens up the buttoned portion of her nightdress to press her bare ribs onto his. She wonders what it would be like to be this giant's wife, to live inside the circle of his protection. He looks so overabundant, a mighty tree thick with sheltering shade, heavily laden with fruit. She has lived every day of her life under sheltering shades, some more pleasant than others. Her cousin is quite fond of bringing up the ways in which he looks after her. Whenever he denies her this pleasure, that privilege, fills her day with household tasks, tells her whom she may see or where she may go, he plays some variation on this theme. He is wont to cite the chapter and verse of her father's will at her every protest. Would you rather I had turned you away, he asks? You've no idea how a girl like you would be treated out in this harsh world. She cannot believe that, were she this giant's wife, he would deny her anything that was in his power to provide. His protection is of another kind. He wouldn't keep her under lock and key. Such meanness isn't in him. He protects not what he fears to lose. What could he possibly fear to lose? But what he has freely chosen as the object of the overflowing beneficence of his spirit. And she would repay him this beneficence any way she could. She would be a wife to him. She would fulfill a wife's duties to keep hearth and home. She would work twice as hard for him as she does for her cousin and feel honored to do so. Her father had actually wished the two to marry. Her cousin still sometimes tells her this, although when he had first died and she'd expressed no interest in the proposition, he had seemed more relieved than anything. She knew him well, even back then. He only wanted to marry her so she would have to welcome him, as a wife must welcome her husband in bed. Unworldly as she is, she knows that much. Since then, she's has precious little contact with the male sex. Her cousin mostly keeps her away from mixed company engagements out of concern for her fragile disposition. She had never felt the worse off. That is, until she saw the giant naked beast hauled out of that hole where her cousin was having a well dug. She sits up, reaches both hands behind her back, feels the breeze billow through her open nightshirt. Her fingertips wander until they find and grip the organ between the man's legs. She knows that this is the penis and serves as the generative organ, or rather served as such when still the giant lived. She does have some familiarity with the process. She had watched bulls put out to stud. When the bulls became amative, it was as if some horrid spirit entered their bodies. They always became agitated. They made the most unnatural noises that ever escaped from a living thing's mouth. They foamed crazily. Their eyes became wide with pinprick pupils and whirled crazily in their sockets. And their male organs, normally swinging at their bellies, became monstrously large, rigid weapons. Observing this, the cows would move slowly and carefully and scan their pens as if looking for a way out. The bulls would follow them around, nudge them brusquely, jump up on their backs, and plunge their organs right into the cow's most sensitive areas in a motion frightfully similar to a stabbing. She had first seen this process at a young age and quite against her father's will, and when she'd asked what the bull was doing, his fair cheeks had pinkened beneath his sparse side whiskers. "He's making a calf inside her," he had said. She wondered how the cow ever stood still for this, how the cow let this happen. It seemed pretty clear to her that if there had not been a pen there, the cow would certainly have run away. Her father had no need to elaborate that the process was similar with people. She had guessed as much already and felt nothing but disgust at the idea. Not until she had first seen the giant, extracted bit by bit from that muddy chasm, had she really understood what was happening within the four walls of that pen. It was a dance, a rhythm as old as the world. The bull and the cow had joined themselves to the pounding beat emanating from the earth. It was the beat she felt now. The beat had seemed to spill out when the earth opened to disgorge this giant. Its power was like the power of God, and one approached it as one approached God in prayer. In earthly love, there was no room for fear, but this kind of love waxed alongside fear, mixed with it. There could be none of this kind of love without power, and fear and trembling awe of the power, for without then came bowing to the power despite the fear, and in the fear to find the exhilaration of submission, to tangle with it, to leave your earthly will behind, to take this thing that could easily destroy you and feel it on you and within you, and make it as much a part of yourself as anything you were born with, and to trust in the power and to find joy in it, and to give endless thanks to him who would share it with you rather than destroying you, and each moment walking that razor's edge, fearing destruction but trusting in salvation, for the wielder of this power is good and gracious, and his thoughts, his ways are alien to you, and you may never reckon the mystery of his even noticing you. But the mystery is as a precious jewel dug from the ground, in whose facets you may stare endlessly, and whose crystalline structure you may spend a lifetime tracing, and the sum of all the staring and tracing is you. She grows warmer and warmer, straddling the elephantine torso of the dead beast, as if he is alive, as if he can reach out with his heavy fingers like young trees, his palm like the lid of a coal scuttle, and pet her gently on the head. She grows hot at the thought. She feels like she shouldn't be sitting on the giant. She's going to unpetrify him somehow, turn him back into flesh, somehow reanimate him with her body heat, and then where would her cousin be? This giant is only valuable to him as a mummy. Surely the scientific world would adore to have a genuine Nephilim to study, but she cannot imagine a scenario where he would consent to be studied. If he did not want to stay, who could possibly make him? He could break out of any prison you could possibly devise, and his skin is thick enough to shrug off bullets like raindrops. What would she do if the giant sprang to life? Would the giant destroy her? Or would he be able to tell, as the cows had, that she meant him no harm? She felt a piercing sadness at the thought that he would be alone in this world, the only living specimen of his kind. She wanted to give him everything she could. Could he understand human ways? Would he be able to discern her intentions? Could she make him understand? He seemed intelligent enough. Could she teach him human ways? Could she bring him into a household and live with him? Would he one day possibly accept her as a mate? There was no man among the race of men for whom she would accept this honor. She, like the giant, was alone in the world. She could forge a bond this way. She could make him understand. She could keep his home as well as any giantess. She could hold him and comfort him, lay with him, bear his children. She wants so badly for it to be real. She fancies the giant's skin in the moonlight begins to flush with blood. She leans forward again to hold him. Her own heart hammers next to his, vibrates it, gives of herself through those layers of aged mineral. His chest begins to rise and fall. Or is it herself who is rising and falling? Her head spins, her perceptions blur, and she can no longer tell where she is in relation to him, where she ends and he begins. She feels like she is melting into him. A man will go unto his wife and become one flesh. She feels the hot breath from his nostrils on the crown of her head, ruffling her hair. She presses her face into his chest. She scoots downward. It feels tingly between her legs. Still pressed to the torso, she feels the gigantic stony member through the folds of her nightdress. She moves along it, inching upwards and downwards. Her nightclothes become hot and moist between her legs. She bucks along the member almost without thinking. Warmth floods from underneath. Pleasure explodes in her mind. Impossibly, the body grows warmer. She looks down at the massive chest stretching before her like the horizon. There is no mistake this time. Color is returning. The gray flecked rock is turning a deep reddish brown, not like a white man's, but not like an Indian's either. A tone she's never seen before on a person. It comes in markedly in those areas where she lays her hands. She claws her fingers and draws downward as she moves on top of him, leaving a flesh-toned stripe all the way down to the giant's waist. It's really happening. She is bringing him back to life. This is the herald of destiny. No one could do this but her. It is already becoming a chore to focus her eyes properly. Her head is whirling so, but she pulls things together to look at him right in the face. The breath of life is returning to the giant's wide face. Fluid pumps into the giant's eyes, and the shape of an iris and a pupil can be seen. She swoons, and when she returns to the world, the giant's eyes are open and right into hers. He looks like one of her father's bulls, but simultaneously much more animal-like, and at the same time much more human and noble than any man she has ever met. She utters not a word. This is the only common language they need. Everything is changed with their eyes. She knows that he's looking within her and feeling everything she feels for him, that he wants everything she has to give him, without terms, without limits. A slight grinding noise issues from his upper body as his eons dead limbs crackle to life. The massive hands reach up and grab her around the waist. They encircle it easily. They grip her fair flesh deeply, taking her breath away. She gasps and begins to tingle and lose sensation beneath that iron grip as she loves it, silently runs a hand along the fleshy pommel of one of the giant's palms to urge more and more. He squeezes, he compresses, he moves up and within her, and she is being pummeled from within and crushed from without, and nothing has prepared her for this rapture. This is everything she ever wanted. She exists in this time and this place to submit to this giant and mingle his flesh with hers. He jumped out of the ground, out of the countless ages past to unite with her. She feels like a key that has finally found its lock, and the door swings open, and impossibly bright beams of light flood her and burn her eyes and cook her mind, and it's agony, and she wants it all. She grinds and bounces and tries to take more and more, and she lets herself loose, shrieks like a terrible avenging angel, flails her body this way and that, and then the giant rolls over, and they both fall off the table, and she knows no more. They found her in the tent in the morning, unconscious, pale, bruised. The flaps she had opened had fallen back down. Her tiny feet were pointing out of either side of the giant's body in a rather unmistakable pose, and even if it weren't for that, the skirts of her nightdress were hiked up, and the heavy miasma of sweat and passion hung inside the tent, the night's drafts doing but little to clear the air. Seeing as the giant weighed over 1.5 tons, her injuries were not as bad as they might have been. The giant had not been petrified with his limbs and back laid perfectly flat, and through sheer luck, the way the contours of his body met the swell of the ground at the side of the table, allowed him to fall on top of her in such a way that he did not kill her immediately. She still had bruised her pelvis, snapped one arm and several ribs, and evinced a whole spate of internal injuries. Furthermore, one of her ankles had been pulverized to such an extent that the doctor had no choice but to cut off the limb midway down the shin. She stared languidly off into space while the gruesome operation was performed, although she had no laudanum at all. Her cousin found the whole affair shocking, but not entirely surprising given her history of instability. He arranged for her convalescent care to take place within the same sanitarium where she is now interned. The giant has made him rich beyond his wildest dreams. He wasn't able to keep her incident out of the local papers, neither in the abstract nor in its salacious details. And as the giant was already a favorite of the wire services, the gushy stories splashed across newspapers from coast to coast. Surprisingly, far from driving his customers away, the story had only increased traffic to see the giant. People crowded up to his farm in droves to see the giant who, though dead for millennia, managed to seduce and ravish a human woman. The money rolled in, employees were needed, and the money was there to pay them. But even after hiring a whole crew of ticket takers, custodians, security guards, clerks, and business managers, he found himself swamped by the amount of work the giant demanded. After another unstable man, provoked to madness by news of the giant's unforgivable conduct, tried to blow up the satanic creature with a bundle of dynamite, her cousin found himself looking for any excuse to sell the giant, and when a huge circus offered him $100,000 on the spot for the giant, he gladly took it. He's looking into buying more farmland now. He's purchased large interests in several shipping firms in the city, and he's courting a woman from a wealthy family. She hasn't seen or heard from her cousin in weeks. His money keeps her in this building, and it pays the several alienists who come to speak with her about her delusional encounter with the giant, about other delusions she's had in the past. She's already given up all hope of ever getting out. She did so the second she heard about the courtship. The alienists see her far too infrequently to be making any real effort to cure her. She's in here to be shut away, an inconvenience. This thought might have distressed her before, but it doesn't matter much to her now. Her disposition is docile in the extreme. Even the alienists have noticed. They regard it as a sign of derangement. They make notes saying she's taken leave of her senses, possibly forever. Nothing could be further from the truth. She sees all. She sees everything much more clearly than she ever has. Her supposed derangement is how these learned men interpret the imperturbable inner calm she now enjoys. They say this happens to women in a certain condition. That power she felt radiating off the giant in waves is within her now. That was his gift to her. The true gift of the truly superior man who overflows with such gifts is the one he bestows upon the woman he freely chooses to bear his flesh and blood. She can feel the blood of a god within her. To her, and only to her, falls the unimaginable honor of bearing the giant's child. She observes the goings-on of the lesser mortals around her with an air of saintly renunciation. She inhabits her plain cell, sits up on her bare mattress and wedge-shaped pillow as courtly as any queen on her throne. She has been visited by the herald of her fate and been anointed by its blessing. She has been chosen. She is the matriarch of a new dynasty, a new order of life. History will record her name. She sits regally upon the mattress and widens her eye to catch the moon's rays streaming in through the window. That's all I got.
Wow, that was awesome. I think William has mentioned this before, but I love the space that your like the historical space that your work occupies, like kind of between like this biblical and like this American like myth, like tall tales type of shit, type of space, and I love that one in particular because of the giant sex scene. So yeah, that was awesome. So
thank you.
Got that Cormac McCarthy type beat.
Yeah.
This was also had giants in it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So next up is Jesse, Jesse Hilson.
Hello.
Hi.
I don't know if you already have the link.
I do. I'll drop it in the chat there. Do you want me to link it on Twitter?
No, that's fine. Just this.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to read, there's 3 poems, but I'm only going to read 2 of them. So if you scroll down, you'll see that the one is called Jungle Life. So I'm going to read that one and then the next one. Jungle Life. Have you ever sketched from memory a picture of a jaguar woman on all 4s, prowling in just a crimson half shirt and bikini, drawn it cold inside of 10 minutes, and then stood back, looked, and felt the breath of hot Gorgan embellish your blood? Myself, I never get to be a human witness. I have had to sneak my way into her life as a golden-collared macaw. In her orchid bedroom, I sit inside a cage and try to catch some sight of her, to whistle coy motifs whenever she comes in. When she steps out of the shower, I leap up and down and have my episode, but she tosses towels over my cage, blinding me. I'm hopping like a toy wound up too much, my beady eyes beshrouded in the shadow vault. In terms of what the other sees, the whole arrangement slants in my direction. She remains a gorgeous, stealthy feline while I teeter on my trapeze above a snarl of shredded paper, gray incontinence. Once I saw her well enough to reconstruct her, but I was stranded in this cage. Once or twice I was taken out. I sat on her shoulder for an afternoon. Could have flown up to a tree. But now I'm back in here with my fruit, seeds, towels dark. She's probably in her cage herself. Pacing or sitting doesn't matter when everything you see wants cages width away. And this last poem is called I Don't, Can't, Won't Remember. For my preteen, I played off my phone the lullaby I'd sung most frequently from a prehistory of bedtimes when she was a baby in my arms. At age 11, finally hearing the original, she said she didn't remember it, never heard it before. No fluttering eyelids or yawns, no delayed trace of my singing's effect, no echoing amygdala or hippocampus ricochet. How forked is the cable spring of associations? The vibrations slink along its length to hit home or skitter down the stray tributary into a lower stack in the memory library. Remember the unfinished basement where the kid watched cartoons with his brother, that mid-century folklore baked into art? How apparitions, risen up out of the remains of dead cartoon characters, transmitted a notional afterlife to the childish audience, which adults commence to undermine with careless jokes. The living will witness, but the memory is a null ghost striving to recover its home. Tribes giving old testimony. The dead spokes of starfish, strewn by angry seagulls across the grotto, must rejoin and return to life for any memory of tumbling surf to be usable. Every mind crystal must line up for the laser to be let through. Will we miss things when we're gone? Will we miss all those sorted away by angelic turnstiles, snatching some individuals through but not others? I fear I might not afterward remember my fond relations slipping away from me down the branching assembly line like some uncomprehending farm animal shunted beltwise to its ending. Thank you.
Yeah, wow, I really loved the last one. Like an uncomprehending farm animal shunted beltwise to its end. Wow, there's a lot of great lines in these. Really like the cadence of Jungle Life, and just visually how it's presented is really cool. How like each line is kind of like complementary to the next one. I like that. Really, really love your poetry, man.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
So next up, I believe, is Gabriel.
Present.
Hey, I don't have a link for you, but
Yeah, I'm just gonna read a little bit from my first book, Virgins in Reverse. I read that piece that blood fetish piece you guys published last month, Rudy.
Yeah, was that the
sort of-
Amber?
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
is that same character, but yeah, it's sort of the same universe that we're gonna meet Amber again,
Oh, excellent.
but for the last time. I could have drove by, hitched or bussed across Hollywood to that 4-story Spanish roof catacomb, but something made me walk through the steady drizzle of rain, not to prolong the inevitable, but to really bask in the churning slime of my own venom, slow cooking my poison so not to evaporate its potency. It was a righteous evil, the kind bred from only a well-meaning but ignorant purity, whose minds and joints and soul have slowed from the friction of martyrdom until one finally realizes the truest language is the one always denied in order to make life easier. The stripping of flesh, unleashing the object of your affection's true spirit, even if it is the devil herself, then confrontation. I had forgotten to forget that she was human. I approached the Vietnamese bakery with a full-color poster in the window advertising their blood soup special. I had passed this on the way to her place a billion times before, but in this moment, my stomach churned the hungry way. I turned right onto the corner of Vine and Lexington, the intersection I longed to be unfamiliar with. There stood the dust-caked Lexington Hotel, a dim red light making her 3rd-story apartment glow dull in the gray wash of the afternoon storm. The lobby door was open, thanks to an arched back of one of its older tenants leaning against it, slowly swaying with every oblivious nod out, cigarette in hand, long extinguished. I walked past him and spared the pleasantries as I began to stomp up the first flight of stairs, skipping 2, sometimes 3 steps all the way up, gaining momentum with each anvil leg thrown. Arriving at her door, my hand went straight for the knob in lieu of the knock. I do this because we are not strangers, yet soon we will be, I thought. The door swung open, the door she suspiciously kept all 3 locks and deadbolt on day and night, the gate to her lair that was opening into a crimson-tinged darkness before me. She materialized from stage left, light from the hallway harshly exposing her in her one strap-off white slip as she slowly stumbled toward me like a fawn just learning to walk. Her head down in shame, dyed black hair shrouding the wrists she was rubbing into her eyes to dam the tears. She stopped a foot away, lifting her head just enough to reveal her pout, lips quivering in sing-songy abused child voice. Where did you go? As dumb and innocent as if we had been playing a game of hide and seek, as though the last explosion down the wires never happened. Nowhere, sweetheart. I've always been here. In fact, I think I've been here too long. I have to say goodbye now and for good. Goodbye now. I forgot to forget she was human again. That shitty, brittle orphan voice had pried itself under my skin and burrowed into my veins, contaminating the blood in my heart and my hand as I ceremoniously touched her shoulder one last time when I should have been backhanding the words right out of her B-movie mouth. Not a second wasted, she threw her hand on top of mine in dominance, not desire, quickly grabbing my forearm with her other hand and began climbing into me, using my flesh as a way to crawl out of her own pit. For we were using my arm in a tight-wound game of tug of war. She fell to her knees for desperate leverage, pulling me down as hard as she could cry, and every time I yanked the other way, she screamed like back alley rape, her tried and true secret weapon against resistance of any sort when the baby talk failed. I got my whole body outside the door except for my left arm, where she was digging her flaking nails, half buried into my skin. I managed to position her wrists into the door jamb and started slamming the door on them as hard as I could. There was clearly no other way I was going to get out of her sad, determined talons. I exhaled a heavy, clenched teeth breath streaked in eerie irony as I marveled it was the second time that month I had seen this door as weapon technique. I gave my friend Jack a private nod for the contagious ingenuity. I imagined him responding as her neighbors began opening their doors and coming out into the hallway with gaping looks of phony concern, more annoyed that we were killing their own private buzz. What are you doing to her? Some catatonic prick inquired. Mind your own fucking business, I barked damply, giving equal pressure to the door onto her elbow as I struggled to break away from her grasp. I noticed some others down the hall eyeing us while beginning to dial their phones again. The pressure was on both of us now. I resorted to place my foot on the hallway for added leverage, and as I gave one last yank, I heard her scream as her splintered nails carved bloody trails down my arm, the door slamming shut with the quickly diminishing echo down the hall, a bellowed draft stinging my new wounds. She howled her disapproval from the other side. I heard the door creak open again, but I was already halfway down the hall, passing each dumb neighbor as their bulging eyes zeroed in on my slaughtered forearm. I wide curved the corner and jumped the whole first flight of stairs like a firefighter on the way to a call, though I was already ill with adrenaline from the one I had just extinguished. Instead of looking back, I shuffled home, imagining her whole building reduced to blackened heaps of smoldering cinders, with maybe some clues left scattered across the charcoal-smeared foundation that showed glaringly what truly negligent tenants they all were. There were no survivors.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you.
I really like the language you use to describe movement in your stories. It's really like, I want to say visceral, like just really, like it gets at it. It shows like the mannerisms of the characters. It's like watching somebody like move, but in description, in your description. I don't know how to really describe it, but it's cool. And I'd like to hear more from this universe of stories, because that other one that you had published on our site, which I linked to on the tweet, that one really got to me. I loved it, and it actually there's a line in it that I was really jealous of. It was the one like, I wish everyone here would disappear so I can rape you. Really jealous of that line. So yeah.
It's funny how that a line like that will take a whole new meaning when it's a female saying it to a man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it was great. But as usual, excellent stuff.
Thank you, Rudy.
So I guess I know we ran kind of long tonight, so I think I'm gonna forego the open mic here unless there's a lot of people want to jump in. Which I think we're down to like 12 or so people, so I think I'm gonna forego that. But yeah, great reading, and wow, some real excellent fucking pieces read tonight. But yeah, so as always, signing off, Misery Loves Company. The thing should be available next week on our YouTube channel, and we'll post the link on Twitter. If assuming I did the recording correctly, which I hope I did. But anyway, thanks for another great night, guys, and have a good one.